everybody. And I'm going to assume tech-wise we're good to go. It's fantastic to be here and to get the festivities started. My name is Michael Gibner, and I'm very proud and fortunate to be the president of the ACG New Jersey chapter. And welcome to ACG New Jersey's 6th annual Corporate Growth Awards. It's a signature event, as many of you know. We have a fantastic panelist coming up, honorees, top-notch, super excited to get started. Just so everybody knows, we're in the ballroom right now. This is the presentation. We were in the networking part of things, so there's no place to go other than to be locked in and listen to these fantastic honorees. And after, there'll be an additional half hour of networking from 10 to 10:30 for those that would like. But for now, we're in the room all together. As many of you know, ACG's mantra is driving middle market growth. That's what we do. It's business, it's relationship, and we're on our way back to normalcy. I want to take a minute to thank our Growth Award sponsors, Eisner-Amper, Aon, ADP, Insperity, Sobelco, and of course, ROI NJ. And we are really, also want to take a special thanks to MJ Jolda. MJ is the committee chair for this Growth Award. She's the architect. Thank you for your dedication. MJ, in another 30 seconds or so, 60 seconds, we're going to get this started. My message and my feeling is resiliency and optimism. That's what it's all about. We're all fatigued. We're all a little bit spent, but that's okay. Looking forward to a great panelist. We're going to start it off with our friend and sponsor is Tom Bergeron. Tom is the founder and editor of ROI NJ, and Tom is going to be the MC for the fireside chat that's going to start shortly. And Tom himself, he is a dynamic entrepreneur. So Tom is going to be appearing on the screen in a moment, and he will take it away. And when he does, I will say so long for a few minutes. So our honoree, Bryan Buchert from Church and Dwight, will also be joining Tom. So, we might be having a slight technical glitch, but that's okay. I'm going to share one other thought with you while Tom gathers himself and gets on. The optimism and resiliency. I can't say it enough. And this group, this organization, this chapter, it's what we're about. And we're getting there. And there he is, the great Tom B. Tom, I hope you heard the intro. It was from the heart. I meant it. Tom, please take it away. I thank everybody for joining us and looking forward to doing it in person next year. The floor is yours, Tom.
Michael, thank you for the introduction. And let me just explain to everybody, the technical glitch is I forgot that I actually had to hit the button that said camera on. I'm like, when is this guy going to introduce me? What's going on here? All crazy. Listen, glad to be here with everybody. I've never used this platform before. It looks pretty cool. A couple opening thoughts. First of all, on ROI, we put out a story this morning. The state chamber did a survey yesterday, just a quick snap survey, 100 people. Business executives, and said, would you be willing to go to an in-person event today? And 2/3, 66% said they would, which I thought was interesting. So we joked about, could we poll the people here? If anybody wants to go on the chat and say, yes, I would, there's no way I would, it might be an interesting, just sort of a slice of life to see how we're doing. We wanted to ask a second survey question. How cool was it on Remo that you could ditch someone at your table that you wanted to get rid of it, pretty easily? We always, as we go to events and you're always trying to work the room, this was an interesting way to move about. So that was all good. Anyways, I'm glad to be here. I'm going to bring on Bryan in a second, or actually I can't. Bryan's got to click in here in a second. This is kind of an interesting thing. Bryan and I were talking. This is sort of a French presentation. I'm Bergeron. He is, so many people think he's Brian Buchert. Fact of the matter is, neither of us couldn't be less French. But it's all fun. So this is Bryan Buchert, who has joined us. He's from Church and Dwight. I want to get right into it. And listen, I'm going to start for half the people in the room and say, Church and Dwight, what is Church and Dwight? Are those the Arm& Hammer people, right? Is this you're honoring a baking soda guy? What do we have here? So Bryan, let's bring you in. Let's figure out, it's Church and Dwight. It's not Turtle and Hughes. It's not Johnson & Johnson. It's not Simon & Garfunkel. It's one of the coolest, biggest companies in New Jersey. We're thrilled to honor you, but we want to give you, we'll call it an elevator speech, but let's call it your Remo virtual speech. Tell us a little bit about the company. Bring us up to date on what you're doing. Glad to have you.
Good morning, everyone. Great to be here. Thanks for having me. So we always joke around that we're not a religious organization.
Bryan, your audio seems a little low to me. I don't know if that's the case for everyone else. Can you hit the... I can hear you, but only slightly. Maybe you need to yell. Pretend like you're talking to your kids.
I'll yell louder. Is that any better?
A little better, yeah. Get closer. Good.
Sorry. Oh, geez.
Now you're sounding good.
All right, good. Maybe I moved a little better. Yeah, we're a New Jersey company, been around for 175 years, interestingly. And we're a consumer products company. Think of us as a mini Procter & Gamble. Everyone knows Procter & Gamble. We actually participate in a lot of the same categories. We used to be a much minier Procter & Gamble. So when I started 15 years ago, we were less than 2 billion market cap, less than 2 billion of sales. And today we are a $25 billion company with over 5 billion of sales, thanks to COVID last year. We were one of the beneficiaries of everyone staying home and not going anywhere. They used a lot of our products a little bit more than usual, including baking soda. A lot of bakers out there during COVID. We have brands that everyone hopefully knows. We're everything from Arm & Hammer, obviously our flagship brand, but we own things like OxyClean, Orajel, Waterpik, Spin Brush, toothbrushes, a bunch of specialty hair care businesses. And we have acquired all of those, other than Arm & Hammer, over a 20 to 25 year period. So we are a platform company. We're unapologetic about it. And we acquire brands, and that's my job, is to do that. So it's been a blast.
All right, so listen, I just found out something, newsflash here. I didn't realize that ROI and Church and Dwight are so the same. We haven't gotten our numbers from 2021, but I believe we are a slightly under $2 billion brand too. So I'm not sure if we're going to pass that this year, but I think we have that in common. Let's talk about your growth and the formula. You just rattled off a couple of different companies and say, oh yeah, that's the shower pick guys and the baking soda people, and they've got this and they've got that. It doesn't seem to make any sense at all. So talk about how you come together. And more than that, for the folks out here, you're the guy. When you talk about the M&A team, right, it's okay. It's Bryan. That's it. It's just Bryan. Talk about the idea of how companies are picked and what it's like to work as sort of a one-man show, obviously working with the other senior executives, but this isn't a huge M&A team, which I think is fascinating.
Yeah, thanks for reminding me once again. It's another cruel reminder, but yes, it came from, honestly, when I started, there was no me. I wasn't replacing anybody. It was a brand new job, and our ex-CEO really believed in and came from a world where they made acquisitions, and his mentor also had one person who worked with him on making acquisitions and corporate strategy, and he was basically trying to 2.0 that, and so hired me, and with the express goal. I'll tell you actually an interesting story. For the first year or so when I was here, I think people were terrified of me. They had no idea who I was, why I was there, because he never really explained it. And
you're incredibly intimidating, so I can see why the case.
People stayed away from me, and they always saw me in the office with the CEO. And at one point, somebody told me they thought I was a consultant who was brought in to figure out how to downsize the company. And I laughed so hard, I couldn't believe it. I'm like, it's the exact opposite. Like, I'm your nightmare because I'm going to make you exhausted because we're going to be buying lots of companies. So we're an acquisition platform. We're in two parts. We're an organic company, try to drive good organic growth with our existing brands. And then we view acquisitions as an added bump to the company. And we don't need to do them. I don't have any KPIs. I don't have to make any acquisitions in a year. I am the only person in M&A and strategy in the company, and we do it on purpose. What happens is you focus on the really important things when it's just you. So you only have so much time and so much focus. And our belief is that when you have too big of a group, you create work and you try to convince yourself of something that's mediocre because you want to do something. And so we really laser focus on our criteria that we have for acquisitions. It's been the same for 15 years. I developed it 6 months into the job. And to be perfectly honest, my first thing we acquired was OxiClean. The day I started, the OxiClean brand was dropped on my desk, and we bought the business 3 months later. 6 months after that, we decided to develop our acquisition strategy. And we basically took the characteristics of that deal and put it on paper and said, this is like the greatest acquisition ever. Like it's perfectly good growth, good margins, no assets. We can bring it into our manufacturing facilities. And so to this day, our acquisition criteria is OxiClean. And so we've stayed true to it. It makes my life easy, to be honest. Like I don't have to spend a lot of time looking at opportunities. It's pretty quick, yes or no. And we're pretty discerning. And like I said, the great thing about my job is that I don't have any, there's no pressure to do anything. It's completely, if it fits, we've done years where we've done 3 or 4 acquisitions, and we've gone 2 years plus where we've done none. And it's no different treatment of me by our CEO. And it's kind of been a pleasure. So we have built the company through acquisitions and through our great organic growth. So once you buy the brand, you can't just buy it and leave it there. You got to continue to grow it and make it work. And one of the things we're most proud of is that over 15 years and 18 plus acquisitions, we have never had a write down of any of them. And so that to me is the ultimate scorecard. Is if you have a write down, it means you either didn't execute on the business or you overpaid for it. And so we're very happy that most of our acquisitions have worked out. Some are home runs, some are singles. You're not going to hit on all of them perfectly, but we do like our portfolio, and we're now trying to look at how to go from being a $25 billion company to a $50 billion company in the future, which is a different challenge.
So I think the obvious follow-up question for everyone out there is the Aussie guy in the OxiClean ad who does all the infomercials. Did he come with the deal? Did you have to hire him separately?
So so he sort of came with the deal, but for a while because he was still under contract, and we did have to renegotiate with him, which is an interesting process. He was a character, and then very sadly, he tragically passed away while we were working with him, and but he was a big driver of the business, and honestly. Great guy. It's funny. I'd be sitting in the office and he'd be in, and you'd hear his voice booming around the corner, and you'd be like, "Oh, great, he's here."
Well, thank you for the story. I'm sorry about the sad ending. Let's move on. I'll have you sort of speak for the company here and just talk about Church & Dwight being a New Jersey company. When we go around and talk to people, all they want to know is why are you here? Why aren't you leaving? What makes you stay? What do you like? Good, bad? I think everybody in this room has debated that question. You guys have made New Jersey, planted a flag. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, we have a really long history of being a New Jersey company. Like I said, we've been around 175 years. We're celebrating the anniversary, I believe, later this year or early next year. We had a facility in Princeton. It'd been there forever. It's honestly kind of hidden. It's a mile away from the campus, but you'd never be able to find it. That was our corporate office for years, and about 7 years ago, we outgrew our building, and we were looking for a new place, and we found a new global headquarters in Ewing, New Jersey, where I am today. And luckily, moved 3 miles from my house, which was a nice add-on for it. But we'd evaluated moving a few years back when we were growing by leaps and bounds, largely due to our M&A activity. We did evaluate Pennsylvania, but New Jersey at the end of the day, based on where our employees were located and the state of New Jersey reaching out to us proactively, we decided to stay and signed a long-term lease here. So we had the opportunity, and the governor and the lieutenant governor at the time were very focused on making sure we stayed and made us feel really welcomed, and it made a difference. And we really didn't want to move, and we made the choice to stay here in New Jersey, and it's great.
All right, so we got a couple more minutes here, and this has been great. Let's talk about looking ahead. We're coming out of COVID. We're doing that. You guys were doing well. Give me a quick snapshot, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, aside from picking up brands, just talk a little bit about where you see the company going.
Sure. No, it's interesting. It's not, it's a lot of the same. There are some pretty big differences, though, that COVID has changed. It changes the way we do business and changes the way we think about the future. So, as of today, we've gone from 5 years ago being 1% commerce online sales to now being 12 to 13% of our 5 billion being e-com. If you add in pickup, so where consumers go to a store, open their trunk, and they just put in there without actually going to the store, that's now 20% of our sales. And so that's a dramatic change in how you do business. And it also is a dramatic change in the businesses you look to acquire. You start looking at maybe a different subset of direct-to-consumer businesses, e-com, Amazon-driven businesses. And we fundamentally view that we're going to go from 20 to 40% in could be as little as 5 years. That COVID has changed consumer behavior. We've learned a lot about, we know a lot about consumer behavior, and it takes about 6 months of activity doing something over and over again in order to change your consumer behavior. And we passed that point a while ago. And so our view is that people who had never ordered online have gotten comfortable with it and are likely not going to change. So we view the future as being, you have to win in e-commerce, you have to win with partnering with the guys like Chewy and Amazon. But the M&A criteria is not going to change. We still are looking to buy great number one, number two brands that are high margin. And we may have to do some bigger deals. When you're a $2 billion company, a couple $100 million deal is a huge deal for you. When you're a $25 billion company, you do have to do some larger transactions in the future. So we probably end up doing some little larger deals. And the big thing we're working on right now is how do you structure yourself as a company in a world where, brick and mortar is going to be much smaller. It's still there. It's still going to be, important, but if you don't win and know how to actually run your business in an e-com world, you're going to be a dinosaur pretty quickly.
Well, that's why you got a team of folks behind you to help figure out that. Yeah, listen, this was fantastic.
Thanks for reminding me again.
Tell your corporate folks, you guys get out more often. You guys are a fascinating company, a true benefit for the state of New Jersey. The New Jersey business community and ecosystem is glad to have you. You guys have a great impact, and because of that, that's why you guys are being presented the Corporate Lifetime Achievement Award. But I don't get to do that. I get to turn this over to my friend Lou from Aon, who I usually see at an event every other day, but I haven't seen him here, so I'm looking forward to this. If he can click in, let's see how the technology works. And are you there? Oh, there's Lou. Beautiful.
Wonderful.
Hey, Lou.
Well, thank you, Tom. I appreciate it. I'm sure you're on the short list of the Jeopardy guest host. At least I hope you are. You should be. So hello, Bryan. And also hello to the members and friends of ACG New Jersey. I'm Lou Minari, Aon and ACG, although not always in that order. And I'm very pleased to be here. Congratulations to Church and Dwight on being selected as the 2021 ACG New Jersey Corporate Lifetime Achievement Award honoree. As you've heard, it's an outstanding company and joining other New Jersey gems in recent ACG honorees, such as Hackensack Meridian Health, ADP, and Minolta. Klein company. Bryan joined ACG New Jersey in 2008, and he not only joined, he has continually contributed to programs as a speaker, a panelist, in marketing materials that we use, and as a champion of all that we do. And Bryan's role at Church and Dwight represents really the essence of ACG, promoting economic growth through transactions and deal making. This direct alignment as the head of strategy and M&A at Church and Dwight mirrors ACG's mission. So it's really a great honor. I'm blessed to call I'm blessed to call Bryan a business associate and a friend. I've also been privileged to support his M&A efforts and can attest to the integrity, intelligence, and sense of fairness he brings to his work. He's a masterful negotiator, perhaps only exceeded by his competitiveness on the golf course. Bryan, on behalf of the entire ACG New Jersey community, I'm pleased to present this award to Church and Dwight and you.
Here it is. There we see it. Thank you very much, Lou. We really appreciate it. On behalf of Church and Dwight, we're honored and appreciate it. And we can't believe we've been found. We thought we could still hide for forever, but we've been found and brought to light. So we appreciate it, though, and it's been a lot of hard work. And thank you for being a good friend. And I hope to play golf with you very soon again.
Wonderful.
All right, that's fantastic. And if there's a windmill hole on that golf, next up, I'm going to turn this over to my good friend, Sally Glick, who everybody loves and adores. She's going to handle the next part of the presentation. I'm going to go to the green room you see at the top of your screen. Apparently, there's couches and palm trees that I can find. So that's what I'm going to be on the lookout for. Sally is going to bring up our list of panelists, discuss with them, and we're going to go to stage 2. This is all great. There she is, the lovely and talented Sally Glick. Always great to see you. I haven't seen you in a year. Can't wait to see you again. I'm going to sign off. Sally, take it from here.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you so much. And congratulations, Bryan, to you and everyone at Church and Dwight. I'm going to the green room right now if there's couches and if someone said mimosa. Otherwise, maybe I'll just stick around for a while. So good morning, everyone. I'm delighted to be a part of this annual celebration of innovation. In February 2020, when the ACG New Jersey selected our 5 honorees, they did so based on the success of these leaders and their ability to grow their companies profitably by embracing an approach that demonstrated flexibility, creativity, and a willingness not just to follow a road less traveled, but to instead actually carve out an entirely new road. But we all remember what happened in March 2020, just 1 month later. So we have had to wait a full year to honor these remarkable leaders. But things often have a way of working out for the best, especially when least expected. So now, not only will we have the opportunity to learn how these men and women and their companies managed to take innovative solutions before the pandemic when they were first selected, but as importantly, we will also have the additional benefit of hearing how they have leveraged their innovative cultures to remain successful during the pandemic. And we will also gain their insights as they are now preparing for their organizations for whatever happens after this unprecedented pandemic. So we're going to get perspectives from before, during, and after. I can't think of any more exciting way to spend a morning. So it is my pleasure to introduce our amazing honorees. I'm going to read some brief bio excerpts, but I encourage you to read the program and learn more about each of them. So if my honorees will turn on their cameras and their microphones, I'm going to introduce each of you briefly, and then we'll begin the panel discussion. Shira Berk is the founder of Goodie Girl, LLC. She began her career working in public relations and then shifted her creative energy into making tasty treats at her small Goodie Girl Cafe in Tribeca. A self-trained baker with bold instincts for all things innovative, Shira spent hours experimenting to create her ridiculously delicious cookies with all-natural, better-for-you ingredients. In 2010, she decided to take the plunge headlong into the food world, and in 2014, She joined the Entrepreneur Space, one of the first food incubator programs in New York City, in order to make the world these a real thing. Next, we will have Mitch, who is the president of Unionwear. He started Unionwear in 1992 with 6 sewers and a contract to make baseball hats for Ralph Lauren. Now Unionwear is one of the largest private employers of Newark residents with 175 employees and contracts to manufacture baseball, hats and uniform headwear, medical bags and backpacks, and binders and portfolios for every branch of the armed services, for every presidential candidate for decades, for domestic manufacturers like Budweiser and Chrysler, and fashion brands such as Vineyard Vines and Supreme. Thirdly, we'll have the honor of hearing from Bryan, Klein, a serial entrepreneur and a visionary with a brilliant mind for sales and marketing. Since launching his first company at the age of 18, that's not a mistake or a typo, at the age of 18, he has had an unrelenting desire to help people become the best version of themselves. In 2011, he founded the Max Challenge to help people to finally achieve their health and fitness goals by way of comprehensive integrated systems of fitness, nutrition, and an unmatched motivation and support. Our fourth honoree is Marianna Rabinovitch, CEO of ECI Technology, a leading manufacturer of chemical management systems serving Tier 1 semiconductor and advanced printed circuit board manufacturers worldwide. If anyone can say that fast 3 times, I'll pick up the price of today's ticket. Marianna has been the Chief Executive Officer since 1989 and drives the company's efforts to develop and manufacture chemical process control equipment to meet the challenging requirements of the semiconductor, PCB, and LED industries, as well as R&D labs that develop next-generation device technologies. And finally, Suuchi Ramesh. She has spent the first 10 years of her career in technology and predictive data analytics with hyper-growth unicorns. In 2016, after identifying the supply chain as one of the few legacy industries to embrace digitization, she started Suuchi Inc., a next-generation supply chain technology platform that digitizes the end-to-end value chain for companies of all sizes. Now, that was the hardest part about the panel. So now it's out there and everything's done, and it's up to you guys to carry us forward and teach us what you've learned. So, Shira, we're going to start with you, and going on the premise for all of you that everything we once knew has changed. We're going to ask 2 questions. One is going to be about the organization itself, and the other is your own leadership skills and the demands on you. So, Shira, let's start with the company. By being flexible in your operations and your best practices, what were you faced with, recognizing that, tell us a little bit, taking us into the pandemic, through the pandemic, and looking forward as well. Thank you, and we're looking forward to hearing from you.
Okay, my mic is on, right? Okay, good. So I think that, like Bryan was talking about, I mean, obviously we're in a space that became very overwhelmed with sales because we're in the food space, right? So all of a sudden, everybody was rushing to the supermarket and buying everything off the shelf. So we were faced with all of a sudden, how do we get all these people that are sampling our products in the bucket, right? Because it was like we were doing like the ROI, and it was probably like $500,000 that we were. It was like $500,000 of marketing that all of a sudden we just had this barrage of people in the pot, you know. So how do we get these people to continue to purchase our cookies? And the other thing that we really found was that we make gluten-free cookies, but that people wanted healthier. They felt that all of a sudden eating healthier options was better for their whole family. So we were really faced with like a different marketing strategy and how to pivot our social media campaign to really like figure out how to make people feel comfortable, happy, since everybody was totally depressed. You know, how can we find a way to react with these new consumers and also, you know, deliver them and continue to deliver them products when the shelves were empty, right? For like so many weeks, you would go into the supermarket and all of a sudden you had to get there at 5 a.m. in order to get anything because everything was gone by 10 o'clock. So really keeping up with the manufacturing became a huge hurdle for us. And we were fortunate enough to be partners, which is very unusual for a small company like ourselves, partners with our manufacturer. They're our financial partner, our major investor. So we became important for them. We got to skip the line. You know, a lot of people couldn't manufacture their products that have small businesses like us. So we never had that issue. Trying to keep up with production became a big hurdle for us, which we never, we're happy to say we never had a day of being out of stock, which was a big challenge for small companies.
That idea of partnerships, I think we're going to be hearing that from others as well, because it's clearly one survival tactic. Mitch, why don't we turn to you? Have the same concept. What were you doing and what are you doing, and how are you managing to be so innovative at the same time? Off.
Trying. There you go. It's only been a year. Yeah, thank you so much, Sally, and good morning to everybody. The biggest change is that the idea is now a natural part of our doing business. We've had 3 major pivots in the last 12 months, and we're about to enter our 4th major pivot. For decades, our main business was providing promotional hats and bags for companies who are specifically looking for the Made in USA label, such as Chrysler and Budweiser, who promote their own products as Made in USA. However, that business was extremely event-focused, and it completely disappeared last March and hasn't returned yet. Last year, we spent about 4 months exclusively making PPE, then another 4 months pivoting to make the merchandise for the Biden campaign, as well as hundreds of political and social action groups trying to raise awareness during the election. When that business dried up and our event business didn't return, we completely changed our focus again to government contracting, and we're now 100% focused on working on about half a dozen government and military contracts. Our 4th pivot will occur when our regular business starts to return, which is happening as we speak. I'm now constantly on the lookout for major shifts in the economic or demographic landscape that will create bottlenecks, shortages, and opportunities. And we aren't just pivoting our markets. We've learned to look outside our industry for talent, for suppliers, for product development ideas. We even took some risks we never would have considered before the pandemic, but that we had to try because of obstacles we never could have imagined, like literal roadblocks keeping our employees from entering our neighborhood, or the world's running out of certain raw materials. We asked our union to make sales for us and talk to our clients. We referred great clients to our competition when we couldn't produce. We even put our clients in touch with our suppliers in order to make things happen. We asked the mayor of Newark to announce on a radio show that we needed home sewers to make face shields. And none of these things backfired. And all these risks have given our company a confidence that we can try even crazier, more out-of-the-box ideas, because the consequences when they fail are so small, but the charge that we get when we succeed is enormous. Another thing is that we've realized that all chaos is good for our company. As a small, private-owned, nimble business, we'll be able to respond to chaos faster than anyone else in our industry. To take that a step further, even all regulation seems to be good for us. All the regulation that may happen in this country under the Biden administration has already happened in New Jersey under Murphy, and most of our competitors are out of the state. So right now, across the board, the Unionwear team is just about ready for anything. I feel like we've reached peak resilience.
Thank you, Mitch. I'm hoping that everyone is taking notes, because the gems that are coming out so rapidly, it's almost like too overwhelming. When Shira talked about partnerships, and you talk about even having a partnership with a competitor, or the ability to promote outside the industry and looking at different things and different kinds of talents, and being so creative and continuing to pivot. You always think a pivot is something you do once, and when you have to keep pivoting and keep pivoting, it's an entirely different mindset. So I hope that our audience is paying very careful attention. Bryan, we're going to ask you to take your microphone off and answer that, and give us your insights into that same discussion of the processes and the procedures and the pivoting. That's the new 3 Ps. You heard it here first.
Thanks so much, Sally. So unlike Shira and Mitch, our company provides fitness classes. So we combine, for those that don't know our brand, we combine fitness, nutrition, and motivation
to help people make absolutely amazing changes in their lives. So when the shutdown occurred, unlike selling food, we literally would have gone to zero. We would have gone to zero because we were shut down. So we immediately pivoted to a virtual format, which sounds easy. It sounds like you would just flip a switch and begin providing your services, nutrition counseling and fitness classes online. But every pivot I find brings, every major pivot, like going online, brings dozens of minor pivots right behind it. So we immediately had to figure out how we were going to manage, an attendance policy online. How are we going to keep track of people that were attending and weren't attending? How are we going to communicate with our members and bring them together as a community? And all of those things really wouldn't have been possible if it wasn't for the incredible culture that we have in our organization. Because ultimately, the success that we've achieved before the pandemic and what we've managed to achieve during the pandemic is because we remain true to one thing: helping people to live happier, healthier, more fulfilled lives. And as it turns out, that is a key piece of our success, because people are really, truly, in a lot of ways, our frontline people, our managers, our staff, our franchisees, they're willing to do more for others a lot of times than they are for themselves. And knowing that they're truly making a difference in the world helped them to have a purpose that was bigger than themselves. And it didn't matter whether we were doing it, and that's something I had to really drive home. It didn't matter that whether we were doing it in person or online. What mattered is that we were going to deliver the end result, helping people to live happier, healthier lives. And we also have a supplement line that we previously sold in our centers. That went to zero. But because of the dedication of our staff, they pivoted and went to delivering supplements straight to members' homes, which was absolutely amazing. So that was the first pivot. Then the pivot that came shortly thereafter that was we developed an entire infrastructure to warehouse the supplements in Oklahoma, actually, and then have them drop shipped directly to members' homes through an internet delivery process. So, every one of these things wouldn't have been possible without the dedication of our people. And I think that comes number one. And that dedication comes from knowing that you really have a mission, that you're really part of something bigger than yourselves, knowing that, even though the delivery of what we're doing might change, the purpose doesn't shift. We stay true to our purpose.
I love that you brought up the word culture and purposeful, as an underpinning. Michael Givner, when he opened, talked about resiliency, but the important other additional traits are that culture and the commitment and the dedication. Thank you, Bryan, for sharing your insights. Marianna, I need you to take your microphone off and tell us what's been going on at ECI.
Okay, I'm very happy to be here on the panel. Stories. We are somewhat different type of business, the manufacturer of equipment for semiconductors. So it's very interesting and very challenging operation. We provide equipment actually to the largest billion-dollar companies in the world. Again, our customers worldwide, and helping in manufacturing chips. Each one of your phones probably is it, Samsung phone or Apple phone or cars, they have chips that ECI equipment is helping to manufacture. So we are very strong in technology, all really top semiconductor manufacturers use ECI equipment to control specific chemical processes. ECI is over 30 years in the business. We were a very small company, started working with IBM on specific technology, how to control some processes in printed circuit board manufacturing, when United States was very rich in PCB manufacturing, like IBM Vigo and IBM Edicut and upstate New York and everywhere else. But fast with our strengths in technology and brilliant minds of our employees, we were able to switch to primarily semiconductors. And today, again, we are successful in it and we are growing with the industry. So, in regards to what happened during COVID last year, it was via manufacturing, heavy manufacturing. How you run manufacturing during COVID times was really, really tough. But first of all, ECI was announced in New Jersey as essential business. We were completely open for business, and loyal, dedicated employees. As much as it was very difficult with school closed and all this, we worked with everyone, and we were able to bring majority of employees back to business and continue the business and continue to supply very important stuff, to a very important equipment to semiconductor manufacturing, where during COVID, the growth in semiconductor was tremendous. And it, by the way, continues until today, because everyone needed at home the equipment to be able to connect, to be able to work from home and everything else. So this is what we do. Again, I strongly believe that it's during the life of the business, it's very important that employees understand the importance, and the company takes care, and we usually provide environment that employees are safe, and they are always big contributors to what we do, and this is how we continue during COVID. We came out actually with shirts, with polo shirts, and every employee got it. It was really nice, strong, essential, and united. And this is how we continue the business, and we continue until today, and growing continuously. Again, our business is not just in New Jersey. Majority of employees in New Jersey, all R&D development. And as you know, chips are becoming smarter and smarter, so we must innovate continuously. So, but we continue we have heavy help and support in Korea, Taiwan, and Japan.
Excellent. Thank you. And thank you for giving us that international flavor as well, and reinforcing the importance of employees and teamwork. Everyone, I think, is recognizing the importance of what you've said today, and I appreciate that. Suuchi, why don't you take off your microphone, since I can't seem to remember to do that myself, and tell us a little bit about the amazing adventure you've had.
Yes, good morning, and great stories. It's been quite a year, and it seems like change is the only constant for all of us, and we've all been pivoting. So great to hear some of the stories, but just a little bit about our company, Suuchi Inc. is we're a supply chain technology platform, like you said, Sally, and where we began 5 years ago is with the marketplace. So we connected brands and retailers in fashion with a network of factories. So we were sort of like the Uber for production capacity, and one of those factories was a factory we proudly ran and operated on our own. So a lot of what Mitch says, which talks about with respect to hard manufacturing, very familiar with that because we did that. First 3 years of our business existence, that's what we did, and we developed our software suite as a function of that feedback. A lot of our early customers were in fashion. Today, our software is also used in other industries. But what ended up happening with COVID, as we're all aware, is that fashion was one of the worst hit verticals, and so a lot of our customers ended up being very badly impacted. And also we were a large team, and a big part of the team factory floor, they couldn't come into the office as well. So on the one hand, our customers were suffering, and on the other hand, our team was not able to really come in as well. And we had a really large facility to maintain. So around this time, we looked at what we could do and in converting the challenges to opportunities. So the one thing we did was much like what Mitch said, we had opportunities to leverage our capacity both in-house and also with our network of factories for PPE. So we did that, and because the demand was so high that those orders became fairly quick, very fast. And simultaneously, we also said, hey, we could use that opportunity where we had some time to double down on the software suite. And so we had to take a call at that point. We always wanted to focus on the software suite. We'd never thought that we'd accelerate and transition to just focusing on the software that quickly. We had an opportunity to focus on PPE. We recognized that was probably a temporary thing, and it had given us the chance to say, this is the time for us to go to market with our software and go all in. So that's what we did, meaning that we continued to operate the marketplace as one of our products in the software suite. But all the feedback we gained had also allowed us to mature about 6 other of our SaaS products. And so we went to market with that. So it took a lot of courage, and I wouldn't say a lack of fear. It's about dealing with the fear simultaneously. Is we had a really massive marketplace business, but to then say, got to focus on one of the two, especially with our core vertical fashion marketplace dying down and focusing on the software, it took the team, it took some talking to ourselves and saying, hey, we're betting on the software side because that was our background. But the other interesting thing was 50,000 plus square foot facility. And I've always been a big proponent of working in person because we've had engineers, we've had factory floor operators, and it was very important for us to develop our software based on the understanding of how the actual factory software, but suddenly the entire city was empty, and it was costing us from a company a little over a year ago, that was in the office every day, all the time, to now, as of a month ago, we have a commercial lease, so we're fully remote. And so although the year has been a really long year, it's still unbelievable to me. We made such a transition, and it's been a lot of learning. So there's been change on a lot of fronts, but I think we've come out on the other side stronger, and we're excited about what's to come, especially on the software side.
Thank you so much. I think one of the things everyone has said, and is pretty obvious, is that during a pandemic, it's the silver lining in the cloud is it gives you a chance to push the pause button. And when you push that pause button, you can step back and think a little more strategically and think, is it worth the risk? Can I really reinvent? But at the same time, what if we don't? And you've all done that so remarkably well. You were already so innovative to begin with the process and then just continued on. I'm going to switch gears a little, and Shira, I'm going to go back to you and say, based on your skills as a leader, I mean, obviously, we've talked about teams, we've talked about culture, we've talked about taking risk and being bold, is still making your employees as well as your vendors and customers comfortable and feel confident with you. As a leader, that really falls on your shoulders. So what did you do differently, or what lesson have you learned as a leader that has brought your organization from not existing at all through a pandemic and out the other end? And then I'll ask each of you to do the same. So you need to take your microphone off about the role of leadership.
Well, Goodie Girl is a very, very small organization, right? So I mean, we all knew what our roles were and really kind of stuck to it. When I think of my role as a leader, it moves more towards my relationship in the community to running a successful company with our buyers. When I think of their confidence in seeing that the company will continue to innovate and that convincing those people that they needed to taste samples that I made in my kitchen instead of from the major manufacturing facility really became our focus in understand and in connecting with the people that had confidence in our company, in understanding that we were going to continue to remain leaders in the sector. I think innovation was really where our focus was. I mean, my leadership in the actual organization, I didn't really need to focus on that because we're 5 people. So we all really knew, and also we didn't have to pivot so much because we all are in different places anyway. So it really was more how do we focus on leadership outside of our working community.
So you cheated, in other words. You started out small, were tremendously entrepreneurial, and it's like voila, and I know it's not nearly that easy. Everyone on this call knows that. Thank you for sharing your lessons learned. And leadership is so essential, communication and leadership. So Mitch, you also had some really interesting things to talk about in terms of pivoting and pivoting and pivoting it again. And I'm sure Marianna is going to be buying her caps for her team from you next week. We'll be sending you that order. But what are the lessons you've learned as a leader?
Well, when the pandemic started, we didn't have the option of everyone working remotely because manufacturing needs to take place where the machinery is. And I was one of the 20 or so people that could work remotely, and I did. And after a month, our executive team nominated our general manager to tell me that the place just ran better without me there. And I was a little shocked, but I understood what he was talking about because management had to make their own executive decisions. I'd been micromanaging for 30 years or so. And those decisions were usually as good, if not better than the ones that I would make. Also, everyone realized the company was theirs. They were calling the shots. They were making things happen, and they could take credit for the success of what seemed to be one startup type experience after another. So this opportunity was augmented by the PPP loans because that really helped us push the pause button. I could give everyone a longer leash, and we were able to take bigger risks there. So I completely rearranged the structure of our organization. Management would run the company, and I would grow the company. I removed myself from the day-to-day, and I would meet daily with management for about 15 minutes with each manager, only to talk about the direction of the company and how we were going to move down our ERP roadmap or how we were going to further automate our business. Another thing that's happened is focusing on process has become a much larger part of my day-to-day, and that's trickled down to everyone at the company. So we still have about 10 key people working remotely. We have about 150 at the factory. And after decades of shuffling paper around and having interruptions be the norm when processes went sideways, we no longer had that option. So everybody likes the setup right now, and people learned if they want to keep working remotely or not interact face-to-face as much anymore, they're a lot more productive, but they have to tweak their processes constantly until there's a procedure for everything. Concept of FaceTime has gone out the window for everybody. Everyone lets results speak for themselves, and they don't feel like they need to be at a desk working for work's sake, especially since I'm not there. That might happen in somebody's minds that they think they need to impress the boss and sit at a desk all day. Now everyone just looks at results and metrics. And I would say also I have a lot more confidence in so many different areas of the business because a lot of our crazy ideas work, and a lot of people who work at really proposed a lot of out-of-the-box ideas without fear of being rejected. And we've tried them and they've worked.
It sounds like a Harvard Business Review dissertation on what great leadership is, particularly the ownership, getting everyone involved, taking and being, I don't know if courage is the right word, but having the emotional intelligence, the self-awareness to say, I need to take myself out of this role, put myself in another role, and the whole company will flourish as a result. It's hard to change behavior. And this pandemic has caused change everywhere we look, if nothing else. Thank you. Bryan, why
Thanks.
don't you take your mic off and tell us a bit about the lessons you've learned as a leader?
Sure. So piggybacking on a little bit of what Mitch brought up, but to give a little bit more background on how we were affected. Again, our industry was really devastated by the pandemic in a lot of ways. Firstly, we were shut down. We were brought to literally zero. Our facilities were shut down. So going virtual was really important to us. And we managed to protect about 30% of our revenues that way. And our staff began to innovate and think of ways that we could bring many profits, many services that were outsourced prior to the pandemic in-house in order to reclaim additional revenues. As an example, we brought our call center in-house, and the people, our staff that was doing field visits, our staff that was doing franchisee support, all of a sudden was part of developing an in-house call center. And we didn't know whether or not this was going to work for sure, right? I had no idea for sure if we were going to be able to pull this off. And it was so important as a leader to instill the faith in the staff that it's okay. We're going to try this. We're going to give it our all. And nobody's going to be accountable for success or failure. We're only going to be accountable for trying. And this is just one of literally dozens and dozens of courageous ideas that were brought forth, not by me, but by the members of our team. That, you know, the best ideas were literally coming from the field and were implemented, you know, from management. And, you know, for me, it was a big shift because, you know, usually we would think about these things for months on end, maybe years on end. Some of those ideas were in the hopper for months and months beforehand. And when we were put under the gun and we were put in a situation where it's like, you know, we've got to do this, our back is up against the wall, we figured it out and we made it happen. And out of maybe a dozen ideas that we went for, you know, there's a good handful of them that really panned out. So my lesson was, you know, don't underestimate the ideas that are coming to you. Try them, you know, take a small bet. Don't jump in all the way, you know, just put your toe, take a small bet and then just keep feeding the winners and just keep going with the winners and then starve the losers, right? Feed the winners and starve the losers, I think is probably one of the biggest learnings that I'm coming away from this with.
And for the candid insights as well. You know, it's pretty hard to go down the path when you say to yourself, wow, I wonder if this will work. Time we take a very long time to analyze and overanalyze and analyze again before we take that little step. And certainly time was of the essence in the last year. No one had the luxury of taking their time, and you obviously used that well. Thank you for sharing. Marianna, before I ask you the same question, and you'll need to take your microphone off, regarding leadership, there's a question in the question and answer area for you. Judith Sheft, who I think is on the IT technology hot list recently, does Marianna think New Jersey can become a semiconductor manufacturing hub? Can New Jersey become a manufacturing hub?
I think we proved that New Jersey can. We have good universities here. We have New Jersey Institute of Technology. We have, you know, Princeton University. We have very good, you know, people, scientists in New Jersey. We have hardworking people for actual manufacturing engineers. I cannot say that right now it's very easy to find, you know, a lot of people. We are continuously hiring, by the way, always electromechanical engineers, chemists, scientists. Please feel free to send us your applications. But I think we can and we should. And we had New Jersey was very rich in manufacturing of sophisticated printed circuit boards. We were close to IBM in upstate New York. Bell Labs was famous here. We hear less and less. But I pray and hope that we will have a lot of partners here.
Thank you. And thank you, Judith, for the great question. So Marianna, what lessons have you learned as a leader creating a flexible environment and hopefully coming out the other end of COVID?
Okay, what I learned that always in a business, you have to have very cohesive, loyal team of employees who are, fairly paid and like to come to work. We understood that our business, like semiconductor manufacturing, was in very high demand during COVID. I mean, we were swamped with orders, we had to deliver, it was urgent. So, and employees understand it. ECI is 30 years in the business, and you will be surprised, but we have many employees who are working already 30 and 20 and 10 years with ECI. So again, we prepared the facilities very, very careful and cleaned up the facilities. The management was here during all the time, and the employees, they initially were trying to get arrangement with kids. Sometimes wife was home, sometimes husband was home, but because school's closing and everything else. But yes, the employees understood the importance and then start coming, and we continued manufacturing and supplied our equipment worldwide. So again, the team, the trust between management and employees working together when there isn't any issue or for employee or for company overall, we work together and we continue the spirit.
And thank you for bringing up the word trust, such an important word for everyone here that is a great leader and innovator. Suuchi, it's your turn. You've been very patient. Tell us a bit about the management, the leadership style that you've had to evolve into and the lessons you've learned.
Yeah, and a lot of what the other panelists said resonated with me. We've gone through some of that as well. One of the things Bryan said is, you got to try a bunch of different things, and we did that. Q2, Q3 of last year, it was important for us, especially on the PPE side, leveraging our factory capacity. And you have to think on your feet and make sure that, I think from a leadership standpoint, not just me, but the rest of the executive team, we provide that safeguard and that safety net. You have to be the parents to find a way to have everybody stay strong and find those opportunities. Having said that, I think what I learned too is at some point we had to focus and pick an area that we said, okay, at the end of this, what's going to be the path that ensures most success? And so while we were experimenting with different things, we also had to take a bet on the one thing that we would focus on, so we didn't continue focusing on many things, right? So, and so that was another transition to say, some things temporarily help, but we can continue focusing on 3-4 different things. So that was one learning, is how do you focus? The second, of course, is going fully remote was a big change for us, and completely revamping our culture around that. Understanding what that meant for different folks. I think what I'd realized was sometimes as the leader or part of being a leadership team, you set the tone on the culture, and you might unconsciously create a culture that's more dictated by what makes sense for you and what's important to you, which in my case was I heavily valued being in person. But then as we started working remote, we also saw that the majority of folks didn't want to come back, especially given that we were now mainly a software company. So listening to that and having those voices and really understanding where folks were coming from, that flexibility mattered to them and that didn't impact productivity was a learning as well. And I think the main takeaway for me was is to do a better job listening and not unconsciously have my speak loudest in sort of building our culture. Yeah. A lot of what else I would have said was said very eloquently by the others. But it's definitely year of learning.
The problem with having a last name that starts with R when you're going alphabetically is everyone else gets to say it first, but you certainly brought some great points up. And I think that everyone in the audience, we wish we were sitting at the palace and everyone was here raising their hand and asking a bunch of questions and having the opportunity to be together, but we're as close as we can get to that same situation. And today you have shared so much. I don't know of any other organization other than ACG New Jersey that not only honors innovation, successful leaders, leaders who listen, leaders who are responsive, leaders who build great cultures and pivot and pivot and pivot again, even without a pandemic. I don't know any organization that doesn't just say, here's your award, but creating a panel and your willingness to sit on this panel and not just say thank you for our recognizing you, but share with us and with everyone else how you got there and what you're constantly doing to stay there. Makes this a most unusual program. It's really one of a kind and wouldn't be anything without you. So thank you for being here. Thank you for taking the time to share your wonderful thoughts, for being successful, for making New Jersey a great place to live and work. And I'm going to turn this over now. I believe that MJ, who Michael has already acknowledged and thanked for all her work in pulling this together year after year, is going to present you with your awards. And I am personally thanking you so much for making this look like the easiest job I could ever have. So MJ, I think you need to take your mic off, or your mic and your camera, and we will take.
Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm not MJ, as you all know. MJ's having.
MG, it's the same.
Yeah,
Michael.
exactly. MJ, you know, what's a letter amongst friends? So unfortunately, MJ is having technical issues. So hopefully she'll populate in a second. But before she does, or before I share her words with you all, I just want to thank Sally and all our honorees for a fantastic discussion, really enlightening and enjoyed by everybody. So thank you very much. And it's been a terrific hour. And I'm stalling because I hope MJ gets on, but she's not. We're going to have a little more networking for those that want to hang. But before we turn over to back to the room, to the tables to network, for those that can stay, here's MJ's closing remarks. And just to remind you, MJ is the committee chair. She's the architect. She was really the point person. So hopefully she can hear me. And we all say, thank you, MJ. Here's her words. As chair of this program, I'm extremely honored to officially congratulate each of the individual award winners and their companies on behalf of ACG New Jersey. Marianna Rabinovitch and the team at ECI Technology showed us how innovation can transport you from a small New Jersey town to the global stage to become a leading international provider of chemical management systems that help high-tech companies provide computer chips, solar panels, flat panels, and other products we use in modern life. From rock and roll to the cookie aisle, Shira, Berk, and the Goodie Girl team have proven that they can revolutionize the cookie aisle by creating great tasting treats that everyone can enjoy, whether they are gluten-free or just want to eat more naturally. Suuchi, Ramesh, and the team at Suuchi Inc. are a shining example of what it means to be a true disruptor. They turned supply chain management on its head by spearheading the digitization of manual processes that enables businesses to scale and grow. Bryan, Klein, and the highly talented team at the Max Challenge have shown us how an innovative approach to integrating exercise, nutrition, and motivation can inspire people to truly change their lives. And finally, Mitch, Cahn, and the Unionwear team have demonstrated how Made in America can be a strategic competitive advantage in an industry which was bent on offshoring its production. Congratulations again to all of our winners. A few quick reminders before we close. First, we wanted to thank everyone who made this event possible, especially the honorees and their outstanding organizations for their time and sharing their stories. Again, this is MJ's words. I hope I'm doing them justice. Sally Glick for her tireless support and for leading the panel discussion today. Thank you, Sally, as always. And our MC, Tom Bergeron, for hosting our fireside chat. Hey, there she is. MJ, you're muted, but you could, and a very special thank you to Diane McLevy, Joanne Maud, and Sarah Coons for a truly amazing job managing the behind-the-scenes logistics for today's event. MJ, are you there?
Yes, I think I'm here.
Awesome. Now we get to have the proper sign off and send
Okay.
off from the woman of the hour. So
Yeah,
please.
there you go. Just in closing, we saw from today's speakers how each industry and how they approach innovation varies. And it really depends on the industry vertical, as well as how the business thinks about innovation. And, you know, this idea of growth is really what ACG is all about, bringing together professionals to help businesses navigate the industry landscape to their utmost success. That is the power of ACG. Hope to see you all next year. We have our event, our 7th annual Corporate Growth Conference and Awards set for May 5th, 2020. Again, thank you all for coming. And now back to networking. Bye, everyone.